Okay, Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone who is watching, all the doctors and all my friends and classmates who are watching. So, my topic for today is the reflecting telescope. So, let's give you a situation. If you go telescope shopping, you'll often find this kind of telescope on the market, the reflecting telescope. So, what is a reflecting telescope, you might ask? So, well, you've come to the right place because I'm going to tell you about the reflecting telescope. A reflecting telescope is a telescope that uses a single or a combination of curved mirrors that reflect light and form an image. The reflecting telescope was invented in the 17th century by Isaac Newton as an alternative to the reflecting telescope, which at that time was a design that suffered from severe chromatic aberration. He discovered that if you use a concave mirror as your objective, your image is free from chromatic aberration. And better yet, because the mirror can be supported from behind, that they can be made much larger than lenses without the sag problem. And remember, the larger the objective, the more light that can be gathered. Newton's design is still used in many reflecting telescopes today. Let's move on to instrumental design structure of the reflecting telescope. The reflecting telescopes are generally built with two mirrors, a large one called the primary mirror and a small one called the secondary mirror. The primary mirror is usually placed at one end of the telescope's tube, and the secondary is placed in the eyepiece line of sight. The eyepiece contains a magnifying glass. Well, the secondary mirror, the positioning is usually at the middle. As you see from the diagram shown here, there are two types of reflecting telescopes. One where the eyepiece is positioned horizontally, and one that is positioned vertically. So this depends on the positioning of the secondary mirror. Also, did you know that the Gran Telescopio Canarias has a 10.4 meter objective mirror? That kind of telescope is used to observe the stars in the sky. Okay, the working principle of the reflecting telescope. The principle of reflection is that when light hits a mirror at any angle, it is reflected at the same angle, which means that the reflected image is not changed. Depending on the type of reflecting telescope, the two mirrors can be a combination of concave, convex, and flat mirrors. The secondary mirror, when flat, is placed at a 45-degree angle. To obtain an image, the telescope is aimed at an object and the light enters the tube. The light hits the primary mirror and is reflected to the secondary mirror. It is when it is then reflected from the secondary mirror to the eyepiece, where the image is magnified and sent to the eye. Must I remind you that the optics concept implemented in the reflecting telescope is the reflection of light, and the image formed is magnified and upright. So, for the application of the reflecting telescope, the reflecting telescopes became extraordinarily popular for astronomy, and many famous telescopes such as the Hubble Space Telescope and popular amateur models use this design too. In addition, the reflection telescope principle was applied to other wavelengths of light, and for example, X-ray telescopes also use the reflection principle to make image forming optics. Even though the reflecting telescopes are widely used and a more popular choice than refracting telescopes, there are some limitations to the reflecting telescope. the reflecting telescopes have a few disadvantages as well, because they are normally open. The mirrors have to be clean. Also, unless the mirrors and other optics are kept at the same temperature as the outside air, there will be air currents inside the telescope, which will cause the images to be fuzzy. As a conclusion, the reflecting telescopes are widely used nowadays, more than the refractive telescope. As we can see, most famous astronomers use the refracting telescopes because they create a more clearer image and a more magnified image better than refractive telescopes, and because the refracting telescopes have more limitations than reflective telescopes. So if you're interested in astronomy, I highly suggest you get a reflecting telescope, as you can see better with a reflecting telescope. I think that is all for now. Peace.